This afternoon, the NEC panel reinstated me as a member of the Labour Party. So once again, Islington North has a Labour MP.
This week, Jeremy Corbyn was readmitted back into the Labour Party after 2 weeks ago being suspended. Let's take a look.
Break it down!
So this week, Jeremy Corbyn has been readmitted back to the Labour Party after being suspended 2 weeks ago. Let's talk about the reasons Jeremy Corbyn was suspended. Let's go back to the report that found the Labour Party guilty of committing a crime in terms of harassment towards the Jewish community. Also that the Labour Party had created an atmosphere of fear or anxiety in the Jewish community around some of the Jewish tropes and language on social media and within the Labour Party as members. Now, Jeremy Corbyn in this report didn't take much flack in terms of him being guilty of, he was cleared of it committing any anti-Semitic acts, but he was liable for being in charge of the party while this was all going on. And consequently, after the report was released, Jeremy Corbyn, after giving an interview to a journalist, was asked about his thoughts on the report, where he gave a definitive apology.
Let's be clear. Start off. One anti-Semite in the party is one anti-Semite too many.
On any offence that had been caused to the community, and that he believed that a lot of the language had been overstated within the media because it had come from a lot of his political opponents. Not long after, Jeremy Corbyn was suspended from the Labour Party by the now leader, Keir Starmer.
Will you be restoring the whip?
I put a statement out last night, thank you.
The reasons given, well, not very detailed, or gave much explanation to why. But, those who can read between the lines know Keir Starmer was in a difficult position as
The Labour Party process that brought Jeremy Corbyn back into the party didn't command the respect of the Jewish community.
He has a lot of pressure from a lot of centrists and right-wing people within the Labour Party to do something about Jeremy Corbyn, who they perceive to be a threat to their electability as a opposition to the Conservatives. But at the same time, Keir Starmer has to balance that against the members of the Labour Party, who are majority generally socialist or working class or part of unions and generally socialist minded, and a lot of them were fans of Jeremy Corbyn. And that's where a lot of this the EHRC report was referring to, where some of the abuse came from. Now then, let's talk about anti-Semitism and its prevalence within the UK. Let's just talk about what is anti-Semitism. Now, anti-Semitism has existed for, near enough 1,000 years in Europe, throughout Europe, probably longer than that. The roots of it go back to the Bible and the crucifixion of Jesus, right? But more recent years, they've been accused of, being the vessels or causing, such things as the plague. They've been accused of starting wars, accused of being a malevolent force within a society. Other tropes have gone around about them hoarding money, certain facial features being characteristics of Jews. But more recently, there's been a lot of conspiracy surrounding the idea of a Bolshevik Jewish cabal that runs the world secretly. And they've gained lots of traction, especially more recently in this pandemic, with a lot of the anti-vaxxers and anti-viruses, people almost using and citing a lot of these conspiracies as confirmation of their claims that there's something not right about this pandemic. So clearly within our country, we have an issue with anti-Semitism. Recently, because Jeremy Corbyn is historically on the left of the Labour Party, he is seen as an enemy of establishment politics. Yeah, he is a Marxist at heart. So he believes in distribution of wealth, more power for the proletariat rather than the bourgeoisie, right? So he's obviously always seen as a threat, and the anti-Semitism was just one of the things they was able to make stick to Jeremy Corbyn, to smear him throughout his period as Labour leader. But let's take a look at the media and whether or not they consistently call out racism. Now, let's take a look at Owen Jones on Politics Live having a conversation or debate with the Spectator's editor, and how he draws a comparison between some of their headlines and how he's now on the show virtue signalling on behalf of the Jewish community for and being a champion for anti-racism.
But I must say this. One of the things that complicated the attempts to deal with a genuine problem that existed on the left were people with no credentials to talk about racism coming on national television to grandstand in the way Fraser Nelson has. And I'll just quickly explain. Fraser Nelson is the editor of The Spectator. One of his leading journalists, Rod Liddell, was booted out the Labour Party for racism. He's still published by The Spectator, good enough for The Spectator, booted out the Labour Party for racism. Anti-Semitism is a genuine problem that Labour failed to address, and it was complicated by the fact that when people like myself said more action needed to be taken, people without the credentials to do so came on television and made people feel defensive and under attack and compromised those attempts to deal with it.
Let Fraser respond.
Well, there's been no articles defending Greek neo-Nazis.
Yes,
on the contrary,
hang on.
I mean, and the thing is, Owen, though I admire him very much as a writer, doesn't strike me as a Spectator reader. And I think he might have been misled by what he sees on Twitter.
No. Tacky, your columnist, wrote articles defending Greek neo-Nazis, the Golden Dawn. That's a fact, Fraser.
Now, as you see in the video, what Owen Jones points to is the hypocrisy of The Spectator. Now, the three stories he references, which are totally true, they were, one was that was championing the German army in World War II. The second was praising the rise of Golden Dawn, the Greek neo-Nazi party, which is now defunct in Greece, and also the fact that one of their journalists, Rod Liddell, was a former member of the Labour Party and was ejected from that for writing the headline in The Spectator, "There isn't enough Islamophobia in the Tory party." So then, anti-Semitism, what is it? It's a form of discrimination. Now, let's take a look at the Tory party, or the Conservatives. This same week, the controversy that has just arisen about Priti Patel. Now, several months ago, in February, a senior civil servant, Philip Ruttam, came out on the news and gave a press conference, which is very unusual and unprecedented, because civil servants rarely ever come out and speak publicly about their relationships with politicians. And he came out and made a statement about Priti Patel bullying and creating an atmosphere of fear within the Home Office. Let's take a look at his statement.
I have this morning resigned as Permanent Secretary of the Home Office. The Home Secretary categorically denied any involvement in this campaign to the Cabinet Office. I regret I do not believe her. I believe that these events give me very strong grounds to claim constructive, unfair dismissal, and I will be pursuing that claim in the courts. My experience has been extreme, but I consider there is evidence that it was part of a wider pattern of behaviour. This created tension with the Home Secretary, and I have encouraged her to change her behaviours. I have received allegations that her conduct has included shouting and swearing, belittling people, making unreasonable and repeated demands, behaviour that created fear and needed some bravery to call out.
You know, he found her to have used, you know, abusive language or foul language, and she had raised her voice to several members of the civil service, and she'd also created an atmosphere where people felt like they couldn't speak up or talk openly to her. But our Prime Minister has taken it upon himself to ignore that report, and Priti Patel still has her job. Now, is that not somewhat a bit of a hypocrisy, considering the Tory party or the Conservative MPs have been taking a lot of this attention in the media to smear Jeremy Corbyn or jump up or, you know, say they're anti-racist in respect to discrediting Jeremy Corbyn. But when it came to another form of discrimination or persecution or harassment, they had a very different tune. So they've all come out and defended Priti Patel today, and have said that, you know, she's a lovely lady. We've never had any issues with her. But what you're forgetting is you're not her subordinates. You're her equals or her superiors. So it's kind of irrelevant whether she's nice to you. It's been proven by the fact that a senior civil servant has resigned and is suing the government, for her behaviour, and the internal report has found her to have bullied. But the words in that report were very telling. I'll let you look at her apology to see.
I'm sorry that my behaviour has upset people, and I've never intentionally set out to upset anyone.
She didn't intentionally mean to cause offence. Yeah? So effectively trying to blame the civil servants for not speaking up, which Philip Rittam has made clear
that her conduct has included shouting and swearing, belittling people, making unreasonable and repeated demands, behaviour that created fear and needed some bravery to call out.
Civil servants did want to speak up, but there was an atmosphere that they couldn't. So there we have two stories of equal significance from both Labour and Conservative. So we have Jeremy Corbyn, who has been accused of leading a party that created an atmosphere of fear, so discrimination against a certain group. And Priti Patel has been accused of creating an atmosphere of fear amongst the employees of the civil servants. So again, discrimination towards groups or her subordinates. Now, are the media treating these things in equal balance? I don't believe they are. I don't believe the media care too much about anti-racism particularly, right? And when we talk about racism within this country, we're only interested in picking out certain groups. Now, recently, we had Sainsbury's released a new advert for a Christmas ad featuring a black family. Now, people in this country lost their minds on Twitter over that, right? Now, anytime people in the black community will use that or cite that as an example, it will be, it will be minimized as individual cases. And, there's nothing to worry about. This is a lovely country. This has no racism. We're the least racist country. But when it comes to anti-Semitism, it only seems that the Labour Party have got a problem with it. And it isn't a problem within our nation and our citizens and some of their beliefs and the conspiracies they have in their mind's eye. Now, what I think the public have a problem doing is discussing all forms of racism openly, and the press play a large part in this. Yeah, because what they do is they give a platform and allow people an opportunity to talk about their truth claims. So when we talk about Jeremy Corbyn and the accusations made throughout the whole period of his leadership, there was countless Jewish figures and people on the right of the Labour Party there with their truth claims about Jeremy Corbyn. But then we have Priti Patel, and we don't hear about any of the truth claims that any of the civil servants have to say. All we hear from the media is maybe the civil servants are too soft, or maybe they need to be a little bit more have more fortitude. Yeah, that's the media spin on that one. So in conclusion, let's not take our eyes off the ball. Yeah, all forms of racism are unacceptable. Let's not get distracted and choose sides, and let's not get caught up in the horse and pony show that the media likes to, where it likes to pick and choose its victims and which ones it chooses to back. Because we know they're just opportunists looking to subvert us and get us angry, while the people they continue to allow be in power get away with what they're doing.
Break it down!